This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
The following is a paid political broadcast. The views, information, or opinions expressed in this forum are solely those of the participants of this event and do not represent the views of the management and staff of Radio Cayman.
It's March Madness at Reflections. Shop the red tag sale until the end of March at Reflections. Save on kids, men's, and women's selected style shoes and sneakers. Brands like Nike, Puma, Reebok, and Dockers, 50% off. Adidas, 60% off. Ladies' jeans in select styles at 50% off. And ladies' tops from $9.99. Men, step out in your Levi's $5.50. Now 25% off. All accessories and handbags 50% off. Shop the March Madness Red Tag Sale at Reflections all month long and be entered to win 2 Cayman Airways tickets. That's mad!
Come on, let me in. Oh, I can't cope with Karen in the office no more, man. Another day of her could drive me mad. I got so much laundry to do home. Oh, another message? Man, this traffic not moving today, or come on, let me in now.
Life is all about the choices we make to deal with the office Karens or sit in this long traffic, or a choice to pursue your dreams to improve your future. UCCI. It's not the classes, the grades, or a piece of paper. It's your ticket for the adventure of your choice. The choice to live your dream. Stop waiting on the path. Visit www.ucci.edu.ky. Choose your dream and blaze your trail today.
At Enterprise Cayman, we're connecting ambitious minds with real-world opportunities. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, tech enthusiast, or looking to expand your network, we've got the tools, training, and community to help you thrive. From career-boosting internships to hands-on startup support, this is where innovation begins. Don't miss out on the upcoming hackathon happening May 10th. Explore this and more today at enterprisecayman.ky. Enterprise Cayman. Innovate, connect, grow.
Hey, Cayman parents, we get it. You're underslept, over-trafficked. You can barely find your sanity in the morning because you're still trying to find your kids' shoes and lunch boxes. Let Yum take some of the stress away. Every day, over 3,000 students enjoy delicious, nutritious meals from Yum. Over 5 million lunches served and counting. Private school parents? Browse the Yum Cayman app and order up to a month in advance or last minute by 12 a.m. the night before. Government school students? Just drop by the Yum canteen. No pre-orders needed. Yum can't help you find your sanity, but we can sure make your mornings just a bit easier. Check out daily menus at myschoolpos.com or visit yumcayman.ky to learn more.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Good evening. From the Radio Cayman studios, I'm Jevi Ebanks, one of your 2 moderators for tonight's debate between West Bay West and West Bay South candidates, followed by Georgetown Central. Also moderating with me this evening is Mrs. Teresa Picarin. Tonight's debate will cover a wide range of topics, including district and national issues. I'd like to thank each of the candidates for participating in this democratic process, which aims to help voters to make a more informed choice among candidates for elected office. The format of the debate will begin with candidate introductions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to deliver a brief introduction. During this time, candidates will introduce themselves, describe their qualifications, and outline their political platform. The question and rebuttal part of the debate consists of a series of questions directed to individual candidates. The first round of questions will call to the candidate's eligibility and ability to lead. No rebuttals are allowed in the first round. The following round of questions will focus on national and district level issues. In the first round, candidates will answer questions in alphabetical order by last name, beginning with West Bay West. In the second round, the order will shift, so the next surname goes first. The following rules will govern this segment. The moderator will ask one question to a selected candidate. The candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question. After the initial response, any candidate who is directly referenced or at the moderator's discretion will have the opportunity to offer a 1-minute rebuttal for the answer. Following that, the original responding candidate will then have a 2-minute span to reply to the rebuttal. The moderator has the discretion to ask the original responding candidate to clarify their response if needed, providing the candidate 30 seconds to do so. The duration of the debate will total 75 minutes. At the conclusion of the debate, each candidate will have 2 minutes to deliver their closing statement. During this time, candidates may summarize their platform and make a final appeal to voters. Now for the general rules of the debate. Each candidate is expected to stay within the time limits. The moderators will ensure strict adherence to the time limits and ensure that each candidate is given equal time to speak. All candidates are expected to maintain a respectful and professional tone throughout the debate. Personal attacks and interruptions will not be tolerated. For the knowledge of the listening and viewing public, no personal devices such as cell phones, tablets, iPads, or laptops are allowed in the studios for the candidates. Notes are allowed and notepads have been provided. Having explained the debate format and general rules, I would like to welcome tonight's candidates for our first debate for West Bay West. Independent candidate, the Honorable Makiva Bush. Candidate with the Cayman Islands National Party, Ms. Julie Hunter. And for West Bay South, independent candidate, Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. At this time, we will go to candidates for their 2-minute introduction, beginning with Mr. Bush.
I suppose this microphone is on.
Yes, sir.
Difficult for me because I don't hear the hearing pieces. But as the 40-and-a-half-year veteran of Parliament and 10 years of unelected work in the community, I'm standing because there is still work to be done. And from what I see and know, far too many of those chosen to replace us will not care for our people. I have cared and I have worked because that's me. I care about helping people, no matter where they come from. If they need help, I'm there to help whenever I can. In these days of international uncertainty, we need workers who know how to stand up for the country. I have been there, I have done it, and can still do so. And therefore, I put my name forward once again.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. We'll now move on to Ms. Hunter.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the listening audience for tuning in and to Radio Cayman for hosting the debate. My name is Julie Hunter, and I am from the beautiful district of West Bay, where I was raised. I'm running as a candidate for the constituency of West Bay West. I am married for 45 years to my faithful husband and greatest fan, Mr. Robert Hunter, and I have 3 grown children and 3 grandchildren. I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in English and Theology in 1980. In 2002, I received my banking degree from the Institute of Canadian Bankers, and in 2012, I qualified as a certified anti-money laundering specialist. I qualified as a payment card industry professional in 2015, giving me the credentials to train staff and CNB's credit card merchants to build secure payment environments to combat fraud within the payment card industry. In 2024, I received the distinct honor of becoming a Justice of the Peace. I'm a lifelong advocate for community service and a respected professional with over 35 years of experience in the banking industry, 8 years as a legal professional and a former civil servant. As a banker, I started my career in the loans department and rose through the ranks to become vice president in 2006. In this position, I managed various branches of Cayman National Bank, as well as held senior roles in compliance and risk departments. In my legal career, I was an assistant clerk of the courts for the maintenance and affiliation. and held various other positions in the legal field before transitioning to banking. I have always demonstrated an unwavering commitment to giving back to my community and have continually dedicated my time and energy to causes that uplift and empower Caymanians. As a founder and president of Circle of Love nonprofit organization, I have led the organization for 17 years, providing vital resources to families in need and fostering inclusion throughout the Cayman Islands. My vision is to preserve.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. You've reached your time. Those are your candidates for West Bay West, and now representing West Bay South, Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. Your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you, sir. Sadly, many of us do not have 2 minutes when we face oftentimes with the perils and the challenges life throws at us. Driving out this evening, I was easily reminded as to why we step forward and stand in the gap. I got a call from my mother, and like many her age, our elderly are being neglected. Like so many, dementia and Alzheimer's ravage them, and to see them suffer has put me in a space where it's motivation to stand for election. No matter my law courses, economics degree, or accounting or finance expertise, it's about being a public servant. A desire to stand in the gap, a desire to show integrity, humility, and above all, a sense of trustworthiness to serve. For me, it's not about the power, the pay, the position, the prestige. It's about being a servant leader, about recognizing the contributions of our forefathers, about standing in the gap and putting in place a foundation so that the future generations of our young people have not just passion, but they also have been positioned with education in a population that gives them the opportunity to succeed because they see opportunities before them. What we need now is leadership with integrity, a political will to do what has been ignored for too long simply because we've been backbiting, browbeaten, and otherwise just blustering. Now is the time for us to ensure that we are working together, stop being divided, stop engaging in vitriolic discourse, and finally stand as a nation unified from East End to West End, from West Bay to Beach Bay. It is time, it is time, it is time. No more talk. Time to get to work.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. At this time, I'll turn over to Ms. Teresa Pickering for the initial round of questions.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ebanks. And as Mr. Ebanks, I'm so tempted to call him Jevy because he's so much my junior, but it's going to be Mr. Ebanks tonight. I have been invited to bring about the eligibility questions, and these are questions that were prepared by Radio Cayman based on your experience, as Kathy explained. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Ebanks, another Mr. Ebanks.
Thank you, Mom.
Right. Earlier in your career, you worked in finance, but for nearly the last 2 decades, you were the host of Talk Today on Radio Cayman. Your path from talk show host to political candidate mirrors the path of several former MPs who leveraged their media presence into political careers. Some may argue that facilitating conversations is vastly different from drafting legislation and making policy decisions. What would you say to voters who question whether hosting a radio talk show is sufficient preparation for the responsibilities of an MP?
Being an MP is not unlike being a parent. You never understand the responsibility. You're not sufficiently resourced or experienced until you take up the mantle. Whether it's the former talk show hosts who have transitioned to parliamentarians, or it's the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the Clint Eastwoods, or the like who have been, or the Ronald Reagans who have in the U.S., as an argument's sake, laid their country or their nation. What will separate me from many is simply a recognition that oftentimes we, and specifically me, do not step forward simply to self-promote, but who step forward after a constant and consistent ask by people to do what I've done for almost 20 years, just specifically. Show up, stay at the table, don't quit, don't run away, don't just put in the towel because they're tough and is beaten down. We are here to be people at the table. So facilitating discussions, recognizing that it was not about personal sort of promotion. It was about inclusion. It was about diplomacy. It was about tact. But more importantly, it was about asking people to consider an alternative perspective than their own selfish ideals. Being elected, you learn on the job, coming with a particular acumen of a strong work ethic, a propensity to learn, but most importantly, a desire to serve because you recognize that the reward isn't the pay. The reward is a stable, civil society where all can benefit and know that their rewards are not just here, but hereafter.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ebanks. I'll continue the questions with you, Ms. Hunter. Your extensive career in banking and leadership of the Circle of Love Ministries demonstrate a strong commitment to community service. Transitioning from the private sector and nonprofit work to a political role presents unique challenges. How do you plan to leverage your professional and community experience to effectively address the specific needs of the West Bay West constituents, and what strategies will you employ to navigate the complexities of governmental processes to implement change? Want me to read it again?
That was quite a bit. Can you read that one more time?
I sure can. Your extensive career in banking and leadership of the Circle of Love Ministries demonstrate a strong commitment to community service. Transitioning from the private sector and nonprofit work to a political role presents unique challenges. How do you plan to leverage your professional and community experience to effectively address the specific needs of the West Bay West constituents, and what strategies will you employ to navigate the complexities of governmental processes to implement changes?
Well, first of all, I'm a lifelong advocate for community service. I have served my community all of my life. So that is not going to be anything new at all. I feel that having served the community for as long as I have in so many different roles, I feel that going in as an MP will just be just a greater platform from what I have already been doing. You know, a lot of times when we are in banking, you know, I've had the opportunity to do financial clinics. I've had the opportunity to train staff, mentor staff, do lots of different courses and in leadership at the bank. And I feel that though all of those things have been preparing me for such a time as this, I feel that, you know, the things that I have done so far in my life have been preparation. I feel that because, you know, I'm a lover of people, because I get along well with people, you know, I always want to bring out the best in people and help people. I feel that these are qualities that will assist me in my role as a member of parliament. I feel too also that because I'm a person that always jump in when something is to be done and not wait for the next person to do it, I feel that that on a whole will help me as well to be a good member of parliament. And I feel that my qualifications speak for themselves. You know, I've had a long career in leadership and banking and as a civil servant, and you know, all of us that all of them that started as MPs had to start somewhere. You know, there's training, and I'm sure you can get training on the job, and I will go from there and trust the Lord to help me through that process.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Hunter. And this is the last of the eligibility questions. This one to be directed at Mr. Bush. Throughout your extensive political career, you've made many significant achievements and contributed to many impressive milestones for the Cayman Islands. But you've also experienced various legal challenges. How do you address these concerns as they relate to your conduct as a public officer?
Firstly, they were all lies and proven so in court. And so I have never let it bother me to that extent. In fact, at times I was glad that they went, they went in that direction because that's the way you get to prove yourself and legally do so. I suspect it'll be more if I stay in government. But God has led me, helped me, and I have stood the test and won.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bush. And that completes this round of eligibility questions. We'll just move into the other round of questions, and I'll pass it over to you, Jebby. The first question is from Mr. Bush. The question reads, West Bay has experienced a rise in gang-related incidents, including the mass shooting just over a year ago at the Ed Bush Stadium, with several injured and recent shootings and arrests highlighting the issue. If re-elected, what comprehensive measures will you advocate for to address gang violence and enhance community safety in West Bay?
We have, yes, experienced what most growing countries experience. And Cayman is not much different than most growing countries, and Cayman is growing. To deal with this at times, it's a touch and go. In many instances, as far as being comprehensive, we depend on the police. We fund the police. We work with the police. Most times, the police don't get cooperation from the general public. They don't get information. And parents at times refuse to acknowledge that there is a problem. And so my experience in the community is that you have to work more undercover than anything else to be able to address some of the issues. To say that I can sit here and say comprehensively what we will do, we'll continue to support our law enforcement agency. We will continue to work with the various programs, and I do believe that we now must go back to where I started in '92 to put comprehensive community programs in place where we reach people, where we go to schools, where we go into the various communities that we know are causing problems. That's what we did back in the '90s.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Any rebuttals? The next question is for Ms. Hunter. Considering the unanimous parliamentary support in 2023 for a new high school in West Bay and the subsequent reallocation of its designated funds in early 2025, if elected, what steps will you take to ensure that this educational infrastructure project is prioritized and brought to the fruition for the benefit of West Bay's growing student population?
Thank you for the question. For a very long time, we have had a lot of promises for West Bay. I feel like West Bay has been the forgotten district, actually. We've been promised, like you said, a high school. We've been promised a new police station. We've been promised that our docks would get repaired. We've been promised that infrastructure would be upgraded. And sadly, none of this has happened. So there is a whole slew of things that we need to champion as soon as we get in. And of course, as you know, everything comes with a great cost. A school comes with a great cost. But I feel that because we have been left behind so long as a district, and because this need has been outstanding for such a very long time, I feel that I will be able to champion this and convince the other members of Parliament, especially since it has been mandated and approved for a long time. I think that with the growing needs of West Bay, and the statistics are there to prove that we need a school. We are bursting out our seams in at the Johnny Cumber Primary School. So that should not be a difficult sell for any member of Parliament that has the interests of our people at heart.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Any rebuttals?
Yes, one.
Sir, you have 1 minute.
Yes. West Bay certainly has grown. We now have 18,000 people. And so, while we just cannot do everything one time, and I certainly haven't been in policy making for a long time, since 2012. I have not been policy maker. I have been opposition, I have been a supporter, and pushed and tried to get these things done. But it's the big cause is the split up. If West Bay hadn't split up, we would have had more strength in Parliament. And that's where we hit it again, split district. The member for Georgetown, West Bay South mentioned it, or the candidate. So West Bay has had its share. We have had our share of things that got done. I chose to build a school hall rather than a civic center because the school was growing. And so you have to at times make those sort of things.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. At this time, I'll offer Ms. Hunter 2 minutes to rebut.
I'm good.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the next question for the candidate for West Bay South, Mr. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. Your question reads, the proposed cruise berthing facility has sparked considerable debate with environmental concerns and economic benefits at the forefront. What is your position on the development of the cruise port?
I think unfortunately the cruise port is the new Cayman Airways where it's become a political football. I think unfortunately as we look at the whole discussion, whether by the governments of the day or the pundits on the side, we've conflated the issue. We're unwilling to separate the cargo, which is our lifeblood, from the cruise tourism. We fail to appreciate the impact on the environment, the economy, but more importantly, the society, by telling people things that may just not be as accurate as the pundits try to play. We are not here to placate, pander, or somehow pacify others. If you speak to our young people, especially those who are not yet eligible to vote, and ask them what they want. They do not want increased debt. They don't want environmental destruction. They want to actually know what their governments are doing. Building an enhanced cargo facility is a priority. Ensuring that cruise tourism and tourism in general benefits the economy is paramount to the overall growth of the economy, the employment of Caymanians. But if we continue to do what we've always done, argue with one another, talk at one another, instead of speaking civilly, sitting and deciding, the banter from the left and the banter from the right, the division that we've seen in the political landscape, as Mr. Bush referenced, relative to the growing divide amongst the constituencies, will only culminate in a society that is civilly unstable, politically unstable, and over the next 4 to 5 years, the financial debt that this country is taking on is going to make it untenable for any government to provide a future where elderly can look and feel safe, where our youth have opportunities. It's not time to keep talking. Now is to actually bring the country to the table with leadership that offers a semblance of diplomacy, respect, and responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. At this time, I'll turn over to Ms. Pikirin for the next round of questions.
I was also going to ask whether or not there were any rebuttals to Mr. Ebanks' rendition. No? All right, good, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Mr. Bush, back to you. Some Caymanians feel that the current work permit system favors businesses over local job seekers. If elected, how would you adjust the system to ensure fair employment opportunities for Caymanians while maintaining a strong labor force?
There are many jobs in Cayman that Caymanians are not getting for various reasons. But when you look at the work permit system, It's not just businesses that got work permits. There are many people who have work permits. Yes, construction, let's take one for example. Big employer. We are training more. We just graduated 14 students out of the apprenticeship system, some going on to get their masters in various trades. We couldn't get Caymanians to go into the hotels. I used to work on one. My mother said, no, not for you. And so we didn't gravitate there. And that left us not wanting to go into that kind of service. What we can do, and we do have a white paper out, which I am encouraging people to get it and read it. It's about change in immigration. The minister tabled it the other day, Minister Seymour. And that speaks to what we plan to do. What can we do? But of course, we're giving the public chance to work at it, to look at it, and to agree or not to agree.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bush. Are there any rebuttals?
I would say that immigration reform is critical to Cayman's future. Caymanians' rights are not optional, and for far too long, the unchecked population has affected our housing, our jobs, and our resources, putting Caymanians at a severe disadvantage. So I think that one of the main things that we need to do to correct this issue that we have, the challenge, is a major challenge in fact, is to remove the property ownership requirement for the PR approval process. That has severely impacted the fact that our jobs, the jobs for our people, have disappeared. They've gone to expatriate workers, and we need to mandate that government is held to the same hiring rules as the private sector. No more easy pathways to citizenship, because this again takes away a lot of our jobs from our young people.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hunter. Mr. Bush or Mr. Ebanks?
Well, I certainly, as I said, we have put a comprehensive paper, and maybe people haven't seen it yet, but we certainly gave it a lot of publicity thus far. Get the paper and you will see the changes that people are asking for. But in getting some of these changes, we've got to recognize some things. It's easy enough for us to say that we don't want no more foreigners. We want to stop this. Some of that has to come. But we have to be mindful, as I wrote, that we don't cut off our nose to spite our face. Because we want everything in the world for this country. Where does money come from to do it? Nobody in the opposition, in the new candidates are saying, where are they going to get the money to do the things? And remember this, you want to throw off every foreigner in this country? Think of how many Caymanians are building apartments on their homes, or just a room to be able to help make it. Who are renting those? Work permit holders, teachers, even accountants. That's who are renting them, not Caymanians. So who you going to hurt? For every move you make, there's consequences. And we have to be careful that we don't cut off our nose to spite our face. And it's easy for candidates, very easy for candidates, saying, I am for Cayman. Of course we all are for Cayman. I got 5 grandchildren, and nephews and nieces and friends like everybody else. But you don't destroy what has helped, made us continue to be friendly, continue to work with each other. That's what God said, when he said, love your neighbor, he just didn't mean the man next door. He mean the community.
Thank you very much.
Next question.
We didn't give him...
I'll yield my time on. Next question.
Okay. Ms. Hunter, this goes to you. Traffic congestion, particularly during peak hours, remains a significant concern for residents. with reports of commutes taking over an hour. If elected, what specific strategies will you implement to alleviate traffic congestion in West Bay?
Thank you. Yes, Caymanians sit in traffic for hours and hours each day, and that is valuable time that could be spent with family and educational activities and so on and so forth. When I am elected, I will champion the mandatory private school bus service. As we know, when schools are out, traffic is much, much better. So there is a direct correlation between the schools and the amount of traffic that we face daily. So I think if we were to mandate that private schools have a bus service, that would take a whole lot of traffic off the roads. Also, I would advocate for restricting cars to one per household for non-Caymanians locally, and for those cars to be purchased locally, so that we wouldn't have all of these importation of cars coming from China, every time you turn around. And then I think that we also need to introduce a reliable technology advanced island-wide public ground transportation system. We have been saying this for so long, but we have not done anything about it. We've just commissioned studies, and that's as far as we get as far as government. So we now need to take those studies that we've commissioned, dust them off, and do something with those studies so that we can get a technologically advanced public ground transportation system that is fit for purpose and that can serve our island. Also, I would significantly increase vehicle licensing fees for work permit holders to discourage mass importation of vehicles. We just simply have too many vehicles on the road, and we need to find ways to get some of those vehicles off the road.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hunter. Any rebuttals?
Again, I can say that Minister Ebanks has put forward comprehensive plan, which just got passed, in fact. But these things do take time. You just can't rush in and put things in place. As I said, certain actions bring certain consequences. Public traffic and transport. You said West Bay, and I'll say this, that West Bay don't suffer the way the rest of the island, because McKeever Bush took the hard decision, leadership, achievements, and made the road against all sorts of opposition. And West Bay do not have that. Yes, we are a growing district. As I said, we have 18,000 people now. So we have to work at things. I support staggered hours, yes. And schools start at the same time. Banks all open and close at the same time. Most companies start and shut down at the same time. So those things we can do, but it's there's no a panacea that you can just say, that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bush. The final one in this particular round here. Barker's Beach has been proposed as a national park to protect its natural beauty and prevent development. Given that less than 5% of Grand Cayman's land is currently protected, what is your stance on the conservation of Barker's Beach? And if elected, how will you work to ensure its preservation?
Well, first I would ask us to all call it Barkers, however you spell it. It's a simple respect for our colloquialisms and the like. We propose introducing national parks legislation. It'll encompass Barkers and the whole of North Sound. The proposals by many seem to just pander to a few so that the access to it will benefit those who may have a soft touch in terms of their businesses. The Hidden Barkers, like many, whether it's the Barefoot Beach that's now in private hands, whether it's the Collier's Pond, we need to look at this as not just protection and preservation of some natural resources or promoting something for future generations. If developers are approached appropriately, giving concessions financially may be one thing, but giving the ability to use lands that are much more conducive to a return in terms of height or density may encourage them without having to use a stick to preserve accesses to beach, to open up greater access to the beach and the waterways. Again, the approach has always been If I have the stick, the gun, or the goal, I will use that to beat you into submission, as opposed to appreciating that equal and unfettered access to these areas bodes well for a civil, stable, harmonious society, but more importantly, one where we all enjoy the amenities, provided that those who do so understand the responsibilities. Go up to Barcas now, their cleanups are not just because of Earth Day. The cleanups are because the families and individuals go and they show their respect to take trash that, as the, one parliamentarian referred to, the nastiness of people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebanks. And can I say that with a side eye, I'm from the district of Bordentown, so my accent is slightly different from those folks from West Bay. Just putting it out there.
You do the side eye, Mom. No.
We're going to now move on to the next round of questions. And this question goes to Mr. Bush. Given the Cayman Islands' heavy reliance on imported foods, concerns about food security have been raised, especially in light of global supply chain disruptions and recent tariff increases. What strategies do you propose to enhance local food production and to ensure a stable food supply for our population?
Well, let just me read from my manifesto to tell you just what we have done, and a further suggestion if I have the time. But we have made some serious moves facilitating the program to promote access to land for Caymanian farmers, because we believe that we have to grow things to help ourselves. I don't know if you can get big factories here to produce any canned or any kind of different kind of food outside of growing it. I believe in that. We facilitated the enhancement of data management for policy and planning in the agriculture sector. We facilitated essential support to farmers, improving resilience against economic challenges and natural disaster. We advocated for the successful passing of a comprehensive policy to address nutrition and food security across the islands. And we launched the implementation of the Flex Farm initiative, which aided in the execution of the handing over of hydroponic systems to all public schools in the islands. We formed the 4-H club, which is an old Caribbean mechanism, but it works. Actively aided in the introduction of the 4-H club in the Cayman Islands to encourage young people involvement in agriculture, fostering skills and passion for farming. We provided support to strengthen the National School Garden program in public schools across the Cayman Islands. And we are promoting and establishing and working with that. But if we can't get the cost of living down to the importers and supermarkets, then I'm going to introduce that government build and subsidize a grocery outlet which brings the cost down as
Thank
big
you,
as
Mr.
will
Bush.
be needed.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Ms. Hunter. Plans for a $32 million luxury apartment complex in West Bay has faced over 200 objections from residents concerned. My apologies.
No rebuttals?
No,
To the listening public, my apologies. You are correct. Are there any rebuttals?
Well, first I would say, Mr. Moderator, that our incumbent, Mr. Bush, talks a lot about what he has done and what all these initiatives, which just, there were so many that he lost me. But what I would say is that I have not seen how these initiatives that he said he has brought forward has benefited our island. I mean, cost of living is still at an all-time high. I mean, we have very little local farming and enough to support our economy anyways. and the hydroponics, I don't see, where that has done. So I would say that, a lot of times we spend time running up and down, on these trips, to get business, but I don't see the results of the trips.
Thank you, Miss Hunter. Mr. Bush, you have a 2-minute span for any rebuttals.
Well, there is none so blind that they will not see. There are efforts being made. Farming, and as I say this, all of these people talking, but they're not still saying what they're going to do. They're criticizing me, as just happened, but what are they going to do? And where are they going to get the money to do it? I certainly believe that the initiatives I spoke about, some of that is already coming to pass. Government helps farmers, the agriculture department do it. But farming in Cayman is difficult because we are not like most countries. The land that we have, we just bought, I can't remember how many acres to get to farmers, to allow them to do farming in East End, where most farming has been going on. So, as far as what Ms. Hunter don't see, blind people can't see.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. On to the next question. Plans for Ms. Hunter. Plans for a $32 million luxury apartment complex in West Bay has faced over 200 objections from residents concerned about overdevelopment and community impact. How do you plan to balance new development with the preservation of West Bay's community character?
Thank you, Ms. Moderator. I think that we need to make sure that we mandate and enforce the findings of the impact environmental studies for all new developments. I feel that our island on a whole, and especially West Bay in the last year and a half, 2 years, has seen an unprecedented growth and in the amount of buildings that we have seen. It's like it's a complete concrete jungle. So it's like our voices have gone unheard. Time after time, we object to developments and we object to all of these different high-rise buildings and things that are not benefiting Cayman. We have to look at the fact that we are developing, we're losing our country to the big developers. Sure, it's easy for Mr. Bush to say, don't spite your face or whatever the term is, but you have to look at what our people want. We're not developing for Caymanians. So how are we benefiting from that? It's just become a concrete jungle. So we need to remember that if our planning department does not see the need to take the voice of the people seriously, then we need to get to the stage where we need to get different people on the planning board. It's as simple as that. West Bay does not need any more development. We need to pause development for now and let us reassess where we are. That is what happens when, like the Bible says, without a vision the people perish, because we should have a development plan long time ago that we have been following, that we should have been following. And if we had done that, then we wouldn't be in the mess that we are in today.
Are there any rebuttals?
Yes, I don't agree that we should stop development.
Nobody said stop development.
Sir,
I said pause.
Ma'am, please allow him. He has 1 minute to respond. Mr. Bush, please continue.
If you pause, that's what you done stopped. And I'm saying, where is the money coming from to do the things that we say we want done? You want the schools, you want the roads, you want the sports centers. Where is the money coming from? Where's the money coming from for health services? You cannot. We have to take it in hand. No two ways about it. And I always believed and campaigned on a balance. Let's get to that balance. And I say again, I support it because the money comes from there. Nobody in Cayman is making money. Nobody is growing it on a tree somewhere about. We need the investment. And the day you chase them out, dog, eat our supper.
Ms. Hunter, you have 2 minutes as the original responder to respond.
Well, let's not forget that Mr. Bush is of the opinion that we are still a developing country. So I do not see how he can say we are still a developing country with us being one of the biggest financial centers in the world. That, to me, that's not a definition of a developing country. Plus the fact he's the one that is advocating for 100,000 people on this island.
No.
Mr. Bush.
100,000 people. I cannot imagine with what we are going through now with 85,000. I can't imagine putting 15 more thousand people on this little rock. What we have to remember is that as an island, we cannot take care of everyone. Caymanians need to come first. And if everything that we're doing is not benefiting Caymanians, then we need to look at that and say, if it's not benefiting Caymanians, then it's not good for us. And he talks about where is the money coming from. If they as a government would be more responsible and advocate some of the funds that they use for pet projects that shouldn't be, then we would have more money to spend on the things that are necessary and that will help our Caymanians. For instance, when I think of the blatant disregard for the wishes of our people, that they would take the amount of money that they spent to buy 8 or 9 Tahoes and drive up and down all the time in those Tahoes, when each of them have a car that they can use and gas, and with the amount that they're paying, that they're being paid for the job that they do. And those are the kind of things that they should look at and be physically responsible and take their job more serious and be more transparent. Look at the school. 50 million for a school in Kimbrack, and all of them agreed to it. So he keeps talking about where the money can come from. Where's the money can come from for their pet projects? He talks about the money can't come. He can't find money for the things that we suggest, but they can always seem to find money for the things that benefit them.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Mr. Ebanks. Many small businesses have struggled with rising costs, especially operational expenses. If elected, what measures will you take to support local businesses while ensuring fair pricing for customers?
I think like small businesses, individual households are also facing significant cost of living increases. Our small businesses are the backbone and pillars of many societies. We are, through many of the government initiatives over the years in reducing and or eliminating business fees, have done very little in the sense of incentivizing businesses, or attempts, whether through the chamber or other initiatives, to provide some sort of financing and business leadership and training. Our Small Business Development Center has done very little. We have killed entrepreneurial spirit in this country, not just through increased bureaucracy, not just through the proliferation of people who come unlicensed to our shores to do works. What has to happen is a recognition that entrepreneurial nature has to be harnessed and fostered through education in our schools. The teaching of certain courses like economics and finance, the understanding that a business acumen can be harnessed. And when a small business, whether 5 or 50, relative to the Cayman context, isn't able to afford not just the salaries, but the rents, the inability to access capital through beneficial terms from the banks or the CIDB or any other government entity, you will not only suffer the entrepreneurial nature to the margins, you will cause many to become employees as opposed to employers.
Any rebuttals or contributions?
I'll take it.
We'll go on to the next question. This question is from Mr. Bush. The high cost of living in the Cayman Islands continues to burden residents with significant expenses in housing, utilities, and groceries. What specific policies would you implement to alleviate the financial strain and make living more affordable for people of the Cayman Islands?
Well, I think I answered some of that already, and I don't plan to go back through it. I said some of the things that I think we can get done, but I'm not going to blow off the top of my head saying that all the things that we're hearing about, that we can get them done, because I know we're not going to get them done. But there are things, like I said, cost of living, food in particular, which is skyrocketed since COVID, and we know why, because of the international situation. Right? All countries having to bear this burden now. Bureaucracy is costing every business, including the importers and including the supermarkets. Bureaucracy, we could cut it by at least 50%, and that will help bring down the cost of living in this country.
Any rebuttals?
I think that one of the things that we could do for cost of living is, in fact, this is one of the things I want to really strongly advocate for when I'm elected. I think we need a Consumer Protection Act and a Better Business Bureau that actually has teeth and can give the ability to penalize offenders. Many times we don't see the cost savings on due to concessions. They're not passed down to our people, and that is so blatantly wrong. Anybody in the country can charge anything they want to charge, and nothing is said or done about it. We don't have an avenue right now to, to correct or penalize, our businesses for unfair practices. So that's one of the things that I would like to do when I'm elected. Also, I think that we could champion the removal of the fuel factor from CUC bills for Caymanians. There are certain, especially the lower income bracket Caymanians that are really, really struggling. Of course, we would have to.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. The next question is for Ms. Sorry. Are there any rebuttals?
All I can say is talk is cheap.
With that being said, we'll move on to our next question. The question is for Mr. Ebanks. Immigration policies in the Cayman Islands have long been...
I think it should...
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Ms. Hunter, you do have a 2-minute rebuttal as the original responder.
Her question...
My question.
She was the original responder to the question.
No. The question was... The question was to Mr. Bush, and then she gave a rebuttal. So
my apologies.
Was for her. Yeah.
So the next question is for her.
Ms. Hunter.
Ms. Hunter, immigration policies in the Cayman Islands have been a topic of debate, a long topic of debate, balancing the need for skilled labor with the protection of local employment opportunities. What reforms, if any, do you advocate to address immigration issue challenges while safeguarding the interests of Caymanian workers?
Thank you. First of all, I would say that we need to remove the property ownership requirement for pre-R. That is one thing that we have to do. Then we have to mandate that government is held to the same hiring rules as the private sector so that there would be no more easy pathways to citizenship. Immigration for too long has plagued us and no one has done anything. It's been under various ministers who have done absolutely nothing about the immigration challenge that we have in this island, and that has led to so many other ills affecting our society. So it's absolutely important that we get this right this time around. Also, I would advocate that we put a moratorium on certain classes of work permits. Say, for instance, our Caymanians there should be certain jobs that only Caymanians can hold. We have nothing like that in place. I remember some time ago when they'd put a moratorium on giving taxi licenses. It worked. Things like this work. A moratorium should be put on HR managers, real estate agents, and water sports operators, to just name a few that have flooded the industry and caused havoc with our Caymanian employment, right? Also, I think that we need to strengthen the enforcement arm of work by equipping them with officers to weed out the corruption with the permit sector that is currently happening. There's a lot of abuse that is being experienced in this island by unscrupulous employers, and we all know it's happening. We just need to call it for what it is. And right now, work does not have the enforcement capability to do their job properly. So we need to strengthen work and help them that they will be able to do it. Then we need to also restore the Immigration Protection Act that Caymanians' interests can be protected like it once was before. When we had that, it was completely different for Caymanians. So we need to get back to that act.
Thank you. Are there any rebuttals? There being no rebuttals, I move on to the next question. Mr. Ebanks, your question. What emerging industries should the Cayman Islands focus on for future growth?
We look at Cayman and we always believe that the pillars are financial services and tourism. The pillars in our society are simply healthcare and education. We see the UK not long ago published the stats that over £1 billion in revenues from students. Now that's being challenged by the immigration policies. We live in a great place that if you look just at Florida, even within its state, they attract students from other colder climes within the US to come to Florida for education. If we were seriously invest in education at the tertiary level, taking the current UCCI campus and, for instance, making that the high school, building a new university in the Cayman Islands, that could potentially not just add greater value to our children's education, but it could bring over more to the country for education. A small investment relative to the numbers. If we look at the forages into medical tourism, we see that there seemingly an investment of hundreds of millions of dollars accruing to the investors. Why can't the country benefit from some of that? So expanding on education and tourism, looking at agribusinesses, taking what could be at the entrepreneurial level when we talked about small and micro businesses, asking our individual homeowners by expanding the densities, allowing the construction of what some would term as Airbnbs, not just investment into large hotel structures. Creating employment, entrepreneurship, growing the economy by allowing our investors not to be sort of titled as foreign, but inward investment directed by people benefiting our economy because it builds up the community.
Are there any responses? There being none, I would like to thank the candidates for joining us tonight. That concludes our question section. At this point, we will move to closing statements from the candidates. The candidates will have 2 minutes to deliver their closing statements. Mr. Bush, we begin with you.
The issues in Cayman are huge. I thank God I put out a manifesto that I think shows the positive results. I know shows the positive results for people. That's what I'm all about. Positive achievements, not slander, not griping about a car. Because when they get there, ain't gonna be no change. I cut salaries. My first term as premier, I cut salaries. I want to see if they can give up their car or go to ask the governor if she would give up hers. But the issues that we have are huge, and they're not going to be just slided over because some of that has gone on. As I said, young people at work is one of the biggest things. We just talked about it. And those who are interested in various trades, we will continue the new training program we now have in place. 14 students, it's about 50 in this term. Small amount, but at least we're on the right track. 14 Caymanians just joined the police force. We are on the right track. And so there are new training programs that can be put in place, and we will do that. And for persons who are interested in jobs which do not require any particular industrial training, we will create a system which will track the jobs that are available, jobs they are offered, the jobs they accept, and their performance on the job, and a special division of work will be set up to carry out this function in work. This is being done now. This is not something down the line. The Minister of Immigration is doing this now. All these things that here we're going to do, they started. give credit where credit is. I certainly want to thank Radio Cayman for the opportunity to have been here and to answer questions where I could.
Thank
and
you,
I thank
Mr.
the
Bush.
public for listening. Certainly want to thank you, both moderators, my good friend Therese, and yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. As a clarity for both remaining candidates, for the extra time that he has taken, I will be allotting you guys an additional 15 seconds as well in your response. Ms. Hunter, over to you.
I'm running for political office because for far too long we have not had the kind of leadership that we deserve as a people. We need leaders that we can look up to, have confidence in, be proud of, and that we can feel certain have the best interests of the island at the forefront of all of their decisions. This is the opposite of what we have seen over the last 16 years. Our leadership has sold us out as a country to the highest bidder, and they're still dead set on doing the very same thing. In other words, continuing the same trend. I have worked hard all my life to maintain a good name and character and have given over 40 years of public service to my country. I know that I have the best interests of our Caymanian people at the forefront of my decision to run for office. I will always remember the voters who had confidence in me and elected me, and I will work hard every day to maintain their trust and to ensure that I do the job to the best of my ability. Under the present leadership, West Bay West has been forgotten, and the morale of our people is at an all-time low because of the lack of the progress in our district. We have been sold a bag of promises for far too long, promises that we went through, and I won't go back through those because they haven't matured. I am therefore of the opinion that experience does not equal good leadership, and career politicians are just that. They are in it just to make a career and for personal gain instead of serving the people who elected them. Our present MP for West Bay West brags about his strong, stable leadership. However, I beg to differ on his leadership for the past 12 years. And it has been anything but stable. This election is not about who has the loudest bullying pulpit or who has occupied the chair the longest. It is about character. It is about judgment and choosing a leader who reflects the best in us. I say we break this trend and elect a new slate of leaders and bring back good governance, transparency, integrity, and morals into this office. So I'm asking the voters to vote for me on April the 30th.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Mr. Ebanks.
We all know the issues. What is the cost of living, overdevelopment, waste management? It comes down to quality of life. We understand the importance of exercising fiscal prudence, so we need leadership that you can trust. My dad always says that a man's word is his bond. We need people that can stand and sit at the table, not excuse themselves because somebody hurt their feelings, who are going to jump ship and run AWOL just because they see political expediency translating into some selfish ambition to serve as premier. When you elected, elevated to cabinet, you have a serious responsibility to serve with humility, with integrity and honesty. That leadership that can be trusted amongst the voters and amongst the fellow parliamentarians is sorely lacking. My grandnephew, as I was leaving, said, "Here's your slogan. You want to avoid the political flu? Vote number 2. Right? That's in the West Bay South constituency. A young fellow who is not yet eligible to vote is so enamored with the political process that he wants to participate. So let's give them hope. Let's give them leadership that extends an invitation for inclusion. Mr. Bush, rightfully, as has been called the father of the house, in 40 plus years of elected service have seen a growing divide. But that division sometimes comes at the helm of those who stand and sometimes who fail to stand. West Bay has not only been further divided into 4 constituencies, South potentially into 2. The Auditor General's report indicated that almost $1 billion of expenditure and nothing to show for it. We can't afford that anymore. So the question has to be asked. Do we have the leadership with the integrity, the moral fortitude, and the willingness, the political will to do what needs to be done? Because there are going to be some serious challenges face in this country and the region because of the changed geopolitical landscape.
Thank you so very much. This concludes this segment of tonight's debate. I want to thank every one of you for doing such a great job respecting each other. I saw there were times when there was some constructive tension, but we still got through the night, and we're still going to leave here as a community-based people. Our next debate is on Monday, the 31st, with Northside and East End. But after this session, we're going to invite the candidate from Georgetown Central to come and have a conversation with us.
Thank you
and
to the candidates.
Yeah, I was going to also thank the sponsors, Subway, Reflections, Enterprise, Cayman Yum, UCCI Winner's Circle. And thank you also to Radio Cayman for enabling and facilitating this, as Mr. Bush said, and to the wider folks, as Dr. Macfield would say, in Radio Cayman land. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You guys did all great.
Radio Cayman, the voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
The following is a paid political broadcast. The views, information, or opinions expressed in this forum are solely those of the participants of this event and do not represent the views of the management and staff of Radio Cayman. Feeding a crowd? Subway Catering makes it easy. Choose from freshly made sub and wrap platters in 2 sizes, or go for individual boxed meals, complete with a 6-inch sub, cookie, and chips. Perfect for groups of 15 or more. And don't forget dessert. Our freshly baked cookie platters come in 2 sizes, so there's always enough to go around. Visit www.subway.ky to view our catering menu. You can call or email us to place your order. Then choose to pick up in-store or get hassle-free delivery. However you cater, we've got the fresh flavors everyone loves. Subway. Eat fresh. Cater with ease.
Hey, Cayman parents, we get it. You're underslept, over-trafficked. You can barely find your sanity in the morning because you're still trying to find your kids' shoes and lunch boxes. Let Yum take some of the stress away. Every day, over 3,000 students enjoy delicious, nutritious meals from Yum. Over 5 million lunches served and counting. Private school parents? Browse the Yum Cayman app and order up to a month in advance or last minute by 12 a.m. the night before. Government school students? Just drop by the Yum canteen. No pre-orders needed. Yum can't help you find your sanity, but we can sure make your mornings just a bit easier. Check out daily menus at myschoolpos.com or visit yumcayman.ky to learn more.
It's March Madness at Reflections. Shop the red tag sale until the end of March at Reflections. Save on kids, men's, and women's selected style shoes and sneakers. Brands like Nike, Puma, Reebok, and Dockers 50% off. Adidas 60% off. Ladies jeans in select styles at 50% off. And ladies tops from $9.99. Men step out in your Levi's $5.50. Now 25% off. All accessories and handbags 50% off. Shop the March Madness Red Tag Sale at Reflections all month long and be entered to win 2 Cayman Airways tickets. That's mad!
At Enterprise Cayman, we're connecting ambitious minds with real-world opportunities. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, tech enthusiast, or looking to expand your network, we've got the tools, training, and community to help you thrive. From career-boosting internships to hands-on startup support, this is where innovation begins. Don't miss out on the upcoming hackathon happening May 10th. Explore this and more today at enterprisecayman.ky. Enterprise Cayman. Innovate, connect, grow.
Come on, let me in. Oh, I can't cope with Karen in the office no more, man. Another day of her could drive me mad. I got so much laundry to do home. Oh, another message? Man, is traffic not moving today or what? Come on, let me in now.
Life is all about the choices we make to deal with the office Karens or sit in this long traffic, or a choice to pursue your dreams to improve your future. UCCI. It's not the classes, the grades, or a piece of paper. It's your ticket for the adventure of your choice. The choice to live your dream. Stop waiting on the path. Visit www.ucci.edu.ky. Choose your dream and blaze your trail today.
Radio Cayman, the voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands. Radio Cayman, the voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
The following is a paid political broadcast. The views, information, or opinions expressed in this forum are solely those of the participants of this event and do not represent the views of the management and staff of Radio Cayman.
Good evening and welcome back to our Radio Cayman election debate coverage. This one is a slightly different style as there's only one candidate in studio representing Georgetown Central, Mr. Kenneth Bryan. Good night, sir.
Good night, Mr. Jevy.
Thank you for taking the time.
And good night to Miss Teresa.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. As you are the only candidate in studio, this will take place more of an interview, but we hope that you will take this opportunity to express your ideas to the listening and viewing public.
Okay.
At this time, I'll give you a few moments to introduce yourself to candidates.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Jevy. And good night to the great people of the Cayman Islands, but particularly to my good voters in Georgetown Central and all the residents who live there. It is a pleasure to be here with you tonight. As most of you know, I've put myself up for re-election to serve you for another 4 years, which has been an honor for the last 8 years. Tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of the issues so you can know that I understand them, and hopefully my plans and the way to solve them will impress you enough to re-elect me again. I'm saddened that my opponents are not here so we can do the comparison of those two things, the understanding and the offering of the solutions. But I'm going to take this opportunity to be here for you tonight because I know you've been anticipating tonight's discussion, and I'm really happy about the presence of Ms. Teresa and Mr. Jevi. We can have a lively discussion about these very important matters that affect you. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah.
The first question, the Georgetown landfill, often referred to or colloquially as Mount Trashmore, remains an environmental and aesthetic concern. What concrete steps will you take to expedite the implementation of sustainable waste management solutions and reduce the landfill's impact on the community and tourism?
Thank you for the question, Jevi. I think one of the first things that needs to be done, and we should have done it many, many years ago, is the appropriate recycling legislation. The truth is, if we did that 10, maybe 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't be having the crisis today. But we have it, and we have to resolve that. The reason why the current administration stopped it was the price point wasn't appropriate from a long-term sustainability perspective. Like my good friend from Bordentown West said, it was like we were buying a Rolls Royce when we really only needed a Toyota. And that's why we had to make the very difficult decision to close the deal down. Not that we didn't want a solution. All elected members want to be able to find the solutions for the people, but not as it breaks the bank. So I think one of the first things we will have to do is reassess whether we can find a better funding model or resize the project, because waste to energy is a long-term solution. But the funding model that was agreed to wasn't in the best fitting for the Cayman Islands taxpayers' money. But that, coupled with recycling legislation and composting, collectively I know that myself, with my PPM colleagues and the party, will find a solution to be able to resolve this, because it's an important matter from a sustainability, environmental perspective, and for the better quality of life for the Caymanian people. So though it's urgent, it's definitely solvable, and I think we could be able to solve that as in a concrete solution within the first 12 months.
I guess when we opened the conversation tonight, we said that we would do it a little different because it allows us to expand some of your ideas. And I'm thinking of the numbers of persons that are running with the PPM. Well, there are 55 candidates running for 19 seats, right? And I guess my question is how... One of the reasons why Caymanians are so averse to the idea of having independence is because they say they can't get anything done. But now we're having another system where it looks as though we may have a whole slew of different candidates from different parties and so on. How do you think you're going to get some of these issues resolved? Something as important as this one, for example, with recycling, when it appears as though we find it a little difficult to cooperate with each other, even when we know it's in the best interest of country?
That's a wonderful question. It actually leads to one of the main reasons why I joined the People's Progressive Movement, because they have the best track record of stability and proven experience. If you think about two major issues that have passed this country in the last 2 decades, being a global downturn in 2008 and the most recent COVID-19 pandemic, they were both at the helm and have been able to keep the country steady, also keep us safe. And with that kind of experience and support, not only from the elected arm, but from the supporting cast of those people outside of the political arm, giving them guidance, I think that this next administration, which I hope it will be at the very least a majority-run, progressive-led government, that we can do that again with this very complicated matter. I think all persons would like to resolve it. It's just about how. So I don't think there's any candidate who's running who's saying that the landfill shouldn't be resolved. So we're all committed to that. I think the Progressives has a very strong team to be able to meet that 10-member mark that can give the public the certainty that you will have the leadership without disagreement on path. So with that in mind, I think that we should be able to solve this problem, and you don't have, unfortunately, what we've had over the last 4 years with, four different governments in place. I'm sad that, unfortunately, I was a part of that, but I learned so much about the necessary structure and discipline needed. Most people knew I ran as the independent Georgetowner. My color was yellow. And most people said that if I ran again as an independent under my yellow banner, that I would be elected again. At least that was the sentiment. But I decided to join the Progressives, not because of me just being elected, but because I knew that this was the best way to offer the country, and as well as Georgetown Central, a more disciplined, measured, experienced approach to actually really solve the problems, particularly something like the landfill, which is so sensitive to the environment and to our long-term sustainability. So though it's a complicated matter, I don't think it's something that our team on the Progressive cannot solve within a reasonable period of time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bryan.
On the topic of the landfill, recent news have been made about the closure of the deal with the DART consortium and the Cayman Islands government paying $17.7 million. How do you think that will impact how persons think of solutions for the landfill, and how should people contextualize that $17.7 million separation?
Well, I think it's easy to compartmentalize it because it's work already resolved. Persons would be driving by the landfill. You'll see that some parts of it has been capped, and that capping exercise was pretty costly. Covering a landfill, making sure the right engineering and infrastructure is in place so it doesn't become a natural disaster or explode, takes some serious engineering to make sure that was done. So that was an expensive component. There's also parts that were land that we acquired that wasn't government land, and that was necessary for the expansion options for the solutions, which cost us money. And there's work that hasn't been done yet, but was already contracted and obligated to. So that's where you see a lot of the elements of those costings in place. So, for example, if we were to start with a new government to come up with it, or start over, or even take parts of what was there before and go along with this amended process, you'll see that some of the things that would have had to been done is already done and paid for. So ultimately the cost would be cheaper for the next administration regardless. So I don't think it's too difficult to compartmentalize that pricing, because it was not like a cost associated with, say, closing the deal prematurely. It was costs associated with work already done by the DART group and the DART consortium. So I think it's easy for people to resolve that one in their minds.
Okay. The next question. The proposed expansion of the cruise port in Georgetown has sparked debate over its potential economic benefits versus environmental concerns.
Yes.
What is your position on this development, and how do you plan to address the associated environmental implications?
Thank you for the question. Very important one for our future. I think it's important to say first, on behalf of the People's Progressive Movement and my colleagues, our position is we'll respect the people's will and respect the choice that they make and the referendum. And that's the best way to deal with democracy when you have very complicated and sensitive matters. So we'll allow the people to choose. Personally, I was in opposition when this discussion first came to Parliament for discussion. And in the last administration, the Progressives brought forward a plan for it. I was there. I saw the complexities of things. I heard the people's cry. I was a part of the support system to make sure that there was a referendum, because I think the people should have their say. I think it was a very complicated, sensitive, affected people's lives, their jobs, the environment, and all these factors. So the people should be involved. And I'm very happy that I was able to deliver in Parliament the necessary tool it takes for the democratic process to happen, which will happen on April the 30th. Personally, after learning what I've learned since I was in opposition, how our economy works, how our tourism product works, how the industry of the cruise tourism product works, I recognize that from a long-term perspective, if we genuinely want to stay in cruise tourism, I don't think we have a choice but to consider building the necessary cruise infrastructure to do so. And at first, it sounded like a scare tactic. I remember when I heard it when I was in opposition, I was like, oh my God, the Cayman Islands, we are the best. You got to come here. And then you recognize that you're almost 50% of your cruise tourism just disappeared right after COVID. I've sat down with these CEOs, the owners, the billionaires, looked them right in the eye, and I saw that they meant business and that, you know, Cayman is just one little small island in the middle of nowhere, and there's loads of them. Matter of fact, there's some even private islands where they're starting to look at, where they go, you know what, I don't even need to deal with the government. I can just get an agreement and stop there. And we have to come to terms that if we want to be in this industry, we don't have to be in it. The people can say no, and we can just try to figure out how we're going to support those persons who are going to lose their livelihoods, potentially lose jobs, lose businesses. I'm not saying that we can't do that. I'm saying that we have to focus on what we're going to do if we don't do it. I know the question is about the environment, so we're going to get to that shortly, but I had to put it in context. So that's what the referendum is about, whether we want to stay in the business or not. So if we come to the conclusion that we want to stay in the cruise tourism industry, recognizing the forces of the industry, no different than financial services, we had to make amendments to our financial services legislation, FATF regulations, to get off the gray list. We didn't say, oh, we're sticking to the way it is. In order for us to amend, we had to change to be able to still be in that industry. And it's quite similar to that. So if we come to that conclusion, the people say, yes, we still want to be in it because it helps us in our economy, employs people, helps our revenues, and we get revenues for protection of the environment and all those other factors. And if the people say yes, then it's for the next administration to look at all the necessary science, engineering, environmental impacts to make sure we have the least amount of impact possible. And you know what was interesting is, it surprises me that other members who are running for office now have said they support it, but they want to consider different locations. I'm not against different locations, but how do you put that in perspective for the environmental component? Because any other location than downtown Georgetown will have more severe environmental concerns because it would be virgin territory to build that kind of infrastructure. So I just want us to put this in context. First, the question, and the reason why the question was framed that way is decide whether you want to be in the industry or not, so that any administration that is in can plan for the outcome. So for example, if the people say no, then the government of the day will have to do the projections. Will the decline, when is this decline going to be, and how many people are going to be affected? Are we going to have business fallouts? And what are we going to do as a government to help those persons and the negative effects that they're going to get, whether it's job losses, whether it's businesses shutting down, or what we're going to do about that? Because it's going to happen. It's been all the specialists that have talked about it have said that the decline is going to come if we don't have the infrastructure. I know some people oppose it for the environmental components. But I carry that back to the discussion about cargo infrastructure. With our population growth, which I think is extensive right now, I think we definitely have to put that under control. But eventually our country is going to get to a point where the cargo facilities that we have is not going to be sufficient. Are we going to say for the environmental concerns, even though we can mitigate them with engineering, with environmental impact assessments, and strategy to make sure they're minimal, are we going to say, no, we're not going to improve our cargo facility because that's how we eat. We don't produce enough. So from an environmental perspective, I think your question was, how do we mitigate that? I say that we will talk with all stakeholders, all the relevant engineers to make sure the minimum impact possible, as possible. And the engineering that was done, I think, about 10 years ago could be totally different today. We can think about options. We don't have to have two piers. Maybe we only need one. Maybe we need to turn the angle a little bit away from some of the more sensitive coral areas. There's many options. But the question is, do you want to stay in cruise or not? Because that's what it's about. So I'm committed. The progressives are committed to making sure that the impacts are minimal.
Mr. Bryan, in your response, you brought up two points that I would like you to address.
Okay.
The first is you pose the referendum question as the beginning. The country has their say, and the policymakers then go and do, as you say, the environmental assessment to get the right outcome. How do you then respond to the criticisms of persons in the public who say those things should come first? For example, an educational campaign before being asked that question. That's one. And then two, you brought up a cargo port. Currently, the framing of the referendum question does not include a cargo port. Is it the thought process of government framers who framed that question that the voting public would be voting on a cargo port as well and not just cruise berthing?
Sorry, if I wasn't fully clear, I apologize. Maybe I wasn't fluent in my answer. I didn't say that the question had anything to do with cargo. I was using it as a reference point to suggest that if we needed to do cargo because the population needed extra size and we needed to do more imports and the current facility wasn't sufficient enough to bring cargo in, would we still have the same viewpoint on the super extreme sensitivities around the environment? That was my reference point. In respect to your first part of your question, I think you were saying, why not have the data beforehand? That is one way we could do it. I think the first question that a lot of people were asking about was location, cost, and environment. And what I found, just being on the opposite side in the last administration, is that you can present maybe 100,000 different options, and persons will find something wrong with those options. And we can't keep on doing a referendum over and over and over again. So the question was structured in that way just to ensure that, do you want to be in industry? Should we have that kind of infrastructure in the first place, which means we want to stay in cruise. And if you do that, if you do agree to that, you can then go with the administration, which will have to do public consultation. They will have to get the approvals for the money in budget. And those things you can hold the government accountable to, because you will have opposition. People can still have their say. They can still call for a stoppage of a proposal that the government brings forward. So that's why the question was done in that way. We had a good test of what people responded like in the last administration when they presented that option. I think right now, while I have a sense, and this is me personally, that persons who don't want cruise, period, will find an excuse about everything. If it's not the environment, then they'll say the location. If it's not the location, then they'll say the cost. So hence the reason the government did not put a plan together specifically to say, here's the proposal for them to choose on. I think that there's enough content and discussion over the last, I'd say, 20 years about whether we want to be in the cruise business or whether we want to discuss a cruise berthing facility. I think just because it's this industry, which not loads of the big money people are in, why it's being pushed down to lower priorities. But I dare say that cruise tourism offers the country more wealth creation than job creation. And I'll explain what I mean by that. In stayover tourism, there's not a lot of Cayman hotel owners. In stayover tourism, there's more expats working in the stayover tourism than there are Caymanians. So when you work in the hotel, you're creating a job. When you own a business, you're creating wealth. In cruise, there are more Caymanian owners that can create wealth and generational wealth they can pass on to their children. You can't pass on a job. You can become a millionaire if you're working and owning your own business. You're not going to become a millionaire working in cruise and tourism unless you're the CEO at the top. And we can barely get one of those at the hotel top now, which is an immigration issue, but I just give you as a reference. So I believe from a value proposition to the Cayman tourism product, to the Caymanian tourism product, more money stays here in the Cayman Islands when you invest in cruise tourism than you invest in stayover. Because most people say, well, Kenneth, we make more money from stayover. That may be true, but how much of that money actually goes back out? So I gave you 2 points. One, most hotels are owned by corporations outside of the Cayman Islands. Those shares go to stock markets that are not owned by Caymanians, so the money goes out that way. The second point is work permit holders take up majority of the workforce for stayover. That money goes out in remittances. So the value proposition for the Cayman Islands, the money does come in, we can record, more money comes in that way, but nobody talks about the leakages. When you invest in cruise, you invest in money staying here because it's predominantly owned and run by Caymanians. So the difference between stayover is job creation, and cruise tourism, it's wealth creation. And I think people should think of things a little bit differently. And also, with cruise, you don't have to tear down any more mangroves or any more land to clear for hotels because the ships come and then they leave. So I don't know if I answered your question, but those are my viewpoints singularly about it. But my group and my party's viewpoint is if the people say yes, we'll do our most environmentally appropriate approach to it, come back to the people and say, this is what we came up with. If the people say yes, they want us to invest in the necessary cruise infrastructure for the cruise tourism industry.
My final question on this topic.
Yeah.
You mentioned if the voters say yes, your party will abide by it.
Yes.
If the voters say no, the party will also abide by it.
That's what I said. Yes.
How can they hold that for certainty when the referendum is non-binding?
Well, Jevi, the truth is that even if it was binding, from a constitutional perspective, one government can't bind the other. So binding can only be for an administration. And I know many people may not always realize that from a constitutional perspective, but a binding referendum could only be binding for an administration. So if you did it today, and you say, okay, this administration is binded to that referendum. And hence the reason why I thought it was important. I was one of the lead architects in getting the referendum done to have it at election day. This referendum question isn't for me. With the Lord's help, I hope to be back, but I may not. And it's for the next administration to deal with the responses of the people. The people should have their say in this. I don't think any one particular administration, because of the sensitivities around it. And I think that we have this tool within the Constitution called the referendum. If not now, when would we ever use such a tool? It was created for these exact moments, and that's why the referendum is there. And I think that no administration would want to go against the people's will, because that's almost a certain guarantee that you'll be voted out the next time around. So I think a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around the outcomes. I don't have that much anxiety because I respect the people, and I think that the outcome is going to be a lot more favorable than a lot of people think, because I think most people recognize that this is the right thing to do. It's about how you do it, and how depends on the trust with the administration. And I am happy to say that the party that I'm with has the track record of stability, responsibility, and proven experience, particularly when it comes to finances control. The Progressives have been the most diligent administrations in the past to control the country's finances. Matter of fact, they were the government that actually brought us out of a severe deficit after the downturn in 2008. So I think there's a lot of confidence that they can have in the People's Progressive Movement when we win the government, if the people want to build a cruise pier infrastructure, that we can deliver it at the appropriate cost with the necessary environmental sensitivities addressed.
Thank you. So I'm going to just pivot a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So recent reports have indicated a surge in serious crimes within Georgetown, raising concerns among residents and business owners. What strategies will you or your team implement to enhance public safety, address the root causes of crime, and restore confidence in the community? And if you want me to read it again, I'm
yes,
happy to.
Please.
Yeah. So recent reports have indicated a surge in serious crimes within Georgetown, raising concerns among residents and business owners. What strategies will you or your team implement to enhance public safety, address the root causes of crime, and restore confidence in the community?
Thank you, Ms. Teresa Lewis. I must say that I am saddened that we haven't done a better job on making sure that people feel safe. That's the number one thing any administration should do, is no matter how hard it gets, you don't want to feel like your life is at risk or your business is at risk. So my team and I have sat together and talked about this, and the number one thing that will have to address is funding, because you need more police officers and more tools, more initiatives to do so. So we have committed that we will increase the funding for police once our government gets in. I'm happy to say, though, that we've already started much of that work just a week and a half ago. The government, upon which two other members of the Progressive Party are a part of, just approved $5.7 million more to the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service in hopes of them being able to hire another 77 officers to the force. And a part of that crime reduction strategy also has to make sure that the people that they hire are Caymanian. I know we may not always have the necessary policing skill sets available on island, but when you think about policing a neighborhood, people want to be policed by people they know. And it also goes back to intel. Intel is always a key component to solving crime, because the police can't be everywhere all the time. And in order to see more Caymanians in the force, people are more likely to speak to the police, tell them important information that is happening in order for them to solve the crime. More crime solved, less likely criminals will feel like they would want to do crime again. We are also committed to doing new generational CCTV systems. We have some CCTV systems here now, but I think they're a little bit outdated, and they have some more across the world that are more sophisticated and will give better evidence to police in order to catch people when they commit crimes. Also, drone technology is something that we have to invest in because we're surrounded by water. And the ability to get from point A to point B quite quickly is going to be essential in solving crime, because it's the crime, we're having problems with persons coming in by boat or potentially even leaving by boat. I'm saddened to hear about an ex-police officer actually leaving in the jurisdiction after being charged for a crime, and then we hear that they left by boat. So we got to be stronger, and we're going to have a multi-agency approach to this, which is something you'll hear more from the People's Progressive Movement when we launch our manifesto in a week and a half, where it has Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, Border Control, DCI, I keep on forgetting.
CDC?
Not CBC, the Coast Guard. I keep on forgetting the Coast Guard. And a multi-level agency that has the necessary communications and partnerships to have effective operations, because crime is not only just in drugs, it could be in business, it could be interlinked, and these support systems have to be working hand in hand for that. Also, I think that we have to update a lot of the criminal legislation. Criminals have to be afraid to commit crime. They got to know that we will penalize them appropriately, and also adjustments to the to the legislation to be more strategic in charging. But I think one thing that the people are really annoyed about is when foreign criminals commit crimes, and it seems as if they're get a slap on the wrist opposed to Caymanians. I think that that's sending a really, really bad message. And I think that it's something that we have to look closely at, that no matter who you are, that you will get the same amount of penalties and prosecution, incarceration for whatever crime it may be, in respect to this matter. So I think a combination of all of these things, from funding to better collaboration with multi-agencies, from hotspot policing, where you increase more police officers in the force, you'll have more of them being able to go into the hotspot areas where you suspect crime will be, along with more technology, better CCTV footage, surveillance systems, as well as better trust within your communities, then I think a combination of those things, you'll start to see things be a lot safer. But I want to take us over to the labor component for a second, because those are policing strategies. What I think we need to do also is ensure that Caymanians, those who may be tempted to be involved in criminality, are usually done so by way of means for finances. If Caymanians had more better opportunities to provide for themselves, they probably wouldn't want to be involved.
So, and that's where I was going, because what is the root cause of crime? Because, and as I sat and I listened, because I know you, one of the things, and I know perhaps I shouldn't be saying this, but in the spirit of the kind of discussion that we're having tonight, one of the things that I know people admire about you is your past, leaving your past behind, and actually pulling yourself up by the strings and doing amazing things. Now, and I say that not to pat you on the back or to flatter you, but it's the truth. And I know that our students are being like, you have children, raising children. This didn't just start today, because I remembered in the 90s when I discovered and wanted to have a conversation about these things with leadership at the time. Folks took the view that, let's just focus on economic development. So I said women were actually building the community, because the mother, the auntie, the cousin, the grandmother, everybody was working in the economy, leaving the children behind to be raised by foreigners whose values were different from ours. And, now we actually see the outcome where it's our own children that have been disenfranchised that are actually going to jail. And we have a police force that has different nationalities, and there's the element of distrust that Caymanians have with some folks within the police force, the distrust within the CDC. So there are those nuanced realities that you don't hear the politicians talking about. And I don't know if it's because this falls under the governor's remit, but I don't know how you are going to just focus primarily on the discussion that you just had with respect to developing policing and those strategies, which I think are important. But if we as Caymanians don't even trust the police force and are unwilling to even want to venture to support them, because there's evidence based on experience that you can't trust them, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I'm just being...
No, Miss Pickern, I think you've highlighted some amazing points. Yeah. I tried my best to answer specifically to the question in respect to policing, but you're right, crime reduction strategies have to go outside of the policing component. And that means better community support in our families, in our neighborhoods, so family units and young people who become adults don't feel the need to be in a particular type of environment of criminality. The other part is the employment solution component. We haven't talked about immigration yet. I hope that we get to that, because it's a very key important point for me. But tightening up on our immigration system to ensure that Caymanians get the first opportunity at jobs so they can provide for their families. Minimum wage also is a crime reduction strategy, because a person could have a job but still don't have enough to survive on and do something wrong. One of the saddest moments I've ever seen was a single mother who got caught at a local store stealing some food. Her life ruined, charges of theft. And I know it was because of the pressures of society on her, not being paid enough, not being have enough support, that she stole from her workplace food to take home. These types of things we have to alleviate, which will also be a crime reduction strategy.
And you also have a bench that is not necessarily sympathetic to locals. So there's a whole plethora of issues, and I don't hear anyone talking about these things. Those folks that got neighborhoods with gates around them, if they think that those gates are going to secure them, when our young people who drive by and see those gates and they're hungry. Yeah. The Youth Act program that Michael Miles started 10 years ago, 14 years ago, and I assisted him and Bonnie Anglin with it, that was scrapped. And that was one of the benefits that we had where we went into the school to identify one of the kids, 10 years. He had a grandmother at home and the grandmother had no care. And we did some role playing. And he said, Miss, if I don't have no money to take care of my grandmother, I'm going to steal the money. And this is not somebody who's bad.
Yeah. It is a signal, and I see Jeffy want to move on, but I think
No, I don't want to move on. There is something that you mentioned earlier that I just wanted you to explain a little bit more. As you were speaking about addressing the root causes of crime and restoring confidence in community, you mentioned enhancing or making stricter criminal laws. Can you expand on that? What exactly do you want to see stricter? Are there particular parts that you say, this are the threshold we want to see? What do you mean when you say stricter laws for criminality?
Well, I mean, I think it's more the discrepancy of how we treat non-Caymanians to Caymanians is what I was speaking of. Yeah. Like, I mean, we've seen the numerous reports of a person importing drugs, and God forbid if a Caymanian did that, they would lock him up right away. I was talking to somebody just today about how a crime was, or a charge was handled. The person was remanded back to prison over and over and over again. The case was came to a hung jury, and they still got him on bail. And I go, if that was a foreigner, it wouldn't have been in the same way. So going back to Ms. Teresa's point, there needs to be an examination of the judicial system, not coming off the crime component, but we have to ensure that the perception is fair in order to get the confidence of the community to support you. Because sometimes a mother, grandmother, uncle, daddy may know that their children or the grandchildren may be involved, and they go, the system isn't set right, so I ain't going to be the one to, as the colloquial would say, inform on them, because they don't feel the system is for them. So we have to not only be strong in our policing and our penalties as a deterrent, but also fair in our justice system, real or perceived. So I do support the viewpoint that you said, Ms. Teresa, but it goes further than that. We also have to attack our education system to ensure that our children are coming out of school prepared. In order for those who want to employ persons can feel confident. Now, I am certain there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of strong Caymanians coming out of school that are doing well. And the only ones that they're talking about are the ones who came out that didn't do so well. Those are the ones that they makes all the noise. But if we have, and this is something that the progressives will be doing, is transition job placement. That if you're not going off to tertiary education, within the first 12 months, we're going to place you in a job, whether it be in TVET, or whether it's in financial services, or whether it's in tourism. Because when we lose our people is when they're just getting out of school. You see, after you've left school and you haven't got a job within 12 months to 24 months, your focus is lost.
That's right.
And we have to catch them at that age. And how we're going to do that is we're going to have serious, strict policies on immigration. We're no longer going to take any excuses from violators of our immigration system, where it's almost as if people violate the law and they get fined a little bit, and it's almost like, oh yeah, you pay the fine. It's kind of part of doing business, and they're not taking it serious. We got to get to the point there where you are violating our immigration law because it's connectivity to employment, that you lose your trade and business license and ability to operate, period. This is how serious we have to take this thing. And we have to have other agencies involved, not only just immigration. We're talking about DCI has to be involved. Obviously, immigration itself, we need to have more enforcement. I want it to, I hate to say it like this, but I want it to be like how it used to be. Where you see the big van coming up, pulling up to a construction site, and then the immigration officers just get out and say, okay, I want to check everybody. What's your status? Or get me the what do you call them? The chairman, the foreman. The foremans, can you give me a list of everybody who's here and show me that they're appropriately licensed to be here? If the fear of breaking the law isn't there, they will do so because they can make money off of it.
So, Mr. Bryan,
yes.
May I interject?
Yes, ma'am.
How do we hold our politicians accountable to the same standards and the employers accountable to the same standards where you can't just call up your little politician friend and say, I need a work permit. Because it's the politicians that actually create the boards and stuff that actually generate policies directed by the politicians. So I hope you're going to give me the audience some sweet news tonight about how we're going to hold those same politicians once elected and who don't actually do as they're required to do.
Before you respond, Mr. Bryan,
we're beating up on you.
If
Sorry.
I can just add a tag to what she's saying, because that was similar to the path I was going to take.
Okay.
Except I want to add, you're in a peculiar position where you are a minister and deputy premier.
Yeah.
You are running with a party that is running against, so to speak, the current administration. But you were there for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
How do you address the public who says, well, you were there, but nothing happened, how do you respond to them?
With truth, with facts. Don't lie. Just be honest. People know human beings are not perfect. And I've accepted that this administration was less than satisfactory. Hence the reason I made the decision to be with a group of people that I think will offer this country. Matter of fact, I know they will offer this country strong leadership with stability, without anxiety. I accept that we have not done enough. I'm not satisfied. There's a reason why I had my sign up that says immigration reform, because I wasn't satisfied with what we did.
And you were one of the first too.
And I was one of the first ones to say so. And I'm so happy today that it's on the lips of everybody. But if as a representative, as a leader, you have to be able to accept, all right, we could have done that better. If you pretend of that, the people are going to see straight through you. So I accept we could have done better. And that's why I've made a decision. That's why I'm confident that the future is going to be a lot better. But to address Ms. Teresa's question, because it's a very serious one, if you are aware of a politician doing that, please let me know. I'll be the first to call the police, because you are selling my country out. The significance of somebody corruptly trying to get work permits and circumventing the process that is there to ensure protection for Cayman employment, they should be locked up and they throw away the key, because you're taking away life, opportunity from the people that you're paid to serve, that you're sworn to serve. So I'm not aware of any of them.
Because a lot of folks that are running allegedly are, will have committed certain grievous offenses in the nature that I've just raised. So I'm just saying, one of the things that I am known for in this community is being a straight shooter.
I love it.
And so I'm asking the tough questions tonight, and you're responding. So I'm happy to hear that you have the courage.
Yes, ma'am.
To respond.
And I think my whole party will have the courage, because we're committed to that.
I hope so.
And I will assure you, when the public sees our manifesto and seeing our strong stance on immigration, and it's not an anti-expat stance. It's a protection of Caymanian interests, not only from an immigration perspective, but from an economic perspective, from an employment perspective, on a pride to be a Caymanian perspective. Because if we don't get this under control now, that's why the people feel hopeless. It's not only the bills, but you go, struggles in life happens. But if you don't even feel like you're part of your home, why are you struggling? So we're insisting that we want to bring back that Cayman pride back to our country. And they're going to get it back when they feel there's a government that will stand for them. I have no doubt that the good people of the Cayman Islands, particularly those of Georgetown Central, know that I'm a fighter and know I will stand for them. But I want to bring to them now a group of people who will do it together. Because when you are divided, you never move. And the commitment that we have made as colleagues together is to give that pride back to the people, that they can stand firm and say, yes, I'm a Caymanian and I ain't not going nowhere. It's time now we change the policies to allow Caymanians to want to come back to Cayman, not having them feeling like they want to leave. And the policies, particularly when it comes to immigration, and particularly when it comes to employment, particularly when it comes to protecting and safeguarding our future, the people will feel it within our manifesto. I'm so excited to launch it, and I hope everybody comes to read it, because we're prepared and we're ready and we're experienced to start from May 1st.
Okay.
I'd like to move on.
Yeah.
I have a topic which affects the ministry which you currently hold.
Okay.
The 7 Mile Beach is experiencing significant erosion and threatening our status as a premier tourist destination. Given recent studies highlighting the urgency of this issue, what immediate actions will you advocate to mitigate beach erosion and preserve this vital natural asset?
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. 7 Mile Beach is experiencing significant erosion, threatening our status as a premier tourist destination.
True.
Given recent studies highlighting the urgency of the issue, what immediate actions will you advocate to mitigate beach erosion and to preserve this vital natural asset?
Thank you so much, Chevy, for the question. I'm happy to say that a lot of the process necessary for the 7 Mile Beach renourishment solution is already in process. What I mean by that is a very unfortunate, because it's environmentally focused, we have to wait for the necessary specialists and studies to be done for the replenishment of the area that is affected. Some people may think that it's not just as easy as just taking a bunch of sand and putting it back down there, because any kind of alteration to the natural environment has knock-on effects, and we have to ensure that those effects are not worsening the problem. I think the bigger picture is not about it, the immediate thing is getting the beach back, getting the sand back. And I think everybody knows that there's sand of similar quality in other jurisdictions. We could have simply just said, we take X amount of millions of dollars, buy the sand, import it there, and just drop it back. But that's not solving the problem. We have to identify what is the issue, and that's where these discussions about setbacks come into place. It also comes in discussion about the historical nature of those approvals, whether they were given within law, and I'm almost certain that all of them were approved legally. So we have a complicated problem where some people say, knock the walls down, make them push back, they should have known better not to live there. If you look historically, not all of those properties were close to the water at the time. Global warming is real, beach erosion is real, and beach erosion isn't only on 7 Mile Beach. As the Minister for Tourism, I've had the honor to go around the island and see other places. Just the other day, I was in Little Cayman, and I was surprised to see how much beach erosion is happening there as well. So with global climate change, you're starting to see different type of effects. And I don't think it's specific to the walls that were built many decades ago. I think that we have to be more conservative now today and have stricter setbacks, even further than they were before, because of the global warming and the environments that we're seeing from the oceans. So in order to solve the problem, we're already well on our way. We have DOE has identified, I think his name is Dr. Bodge, who will set out the plan of action of how to mitigate this. I think one of the biggest questions the public wants to find out is, well, who's going to pay for it? It wasn't me that did it. And I'm not going to be the beneficiaries of the beach. When in truth and fact, that's not 100% correct. The truth is we all benefit from that beach. Because like you said, it's a prized possession of our tourism product. It's a part of our brand. It's a part of the thing that attracts people here, upon which we make taxes from the tourism industry. And we also have access to that beach, and we can walk it back and forth. Many of the hotels and condos that are affected by this, some of them we can't even make revenue on it anymore, particularly like the Marriott. The revenues are down tremendously. We've never been able to, it's been the lowest amount of revenue we've gotten from the Marriott Hotel in decades, because they're no longer a beachfront property. So the question is, who's going to pay for it? And I think there needs to be a shared cost. I think there should be a fund developed that can be connected to the tourism taxes and fees that go towards beach erosion strategies, not only for today and not only for 7 Mile Beach, but across the island, because it doesn't seem like this is going to go away. And that, coupled with setback strategies for new developments moving forward, along with a fund in the event that those other areas that are close to the beach start to get affected, that we can fix it with the proper engineering and the proper environmental assessment strategies completed. So to solve the problem, wait till those studies are done, quickly decide where the money is going to come from, create a fund so it doesn't come out of the taxpayers' money, make those who use it the most be the ones to pay for it, and we can keep that fund and put it over into one side so we can use it for future purposes. And I think we can solve the problem. The longest part of this issue is the environmental studies associated with it. I wish it was easy as just buying the sand and putting it back, because I think we would have done it by now. It doesn't take more than a month to actually ship the stuff here, and probably another month and a half or two to place it down. But it's not as simple as that, because we do take the environment into consideration.
I'm trying not to go off topic, because you did mention beach access, for example. You also mentioned revenues for different hotels.
Yes.
In the spirit of open conversation, most or some at least Caymanians feel that certain developments are more responsible for the damage than, for example, the average layperson using it. I think of one of the big hotels for a reason. What is your understanding of their willingness to be a part of that public-private partnership that you talk about in order to solving the problem? Because on one hand, I can see why someone would say, well, if I didn't cause the problem, why should I fix it?
Okay.
But at the same time, you, I guess as a good minister of tourism, you make a good point. We all benefit from having a good beach.
Correct.
So what would that public-private partnership look like? Like a 50-50, a 60-40? What do you mean by that?
Well, first off,
I'll get back to beach access.
All right.
So there's good job so far, because I know we have been throwing some tough ones your way.
It's okay. That's what good leaders do. So I'm comfortable. I'm happy for it. It's important. It gives the display to the people I represent my competence and capability to handle it. So it's good. I appreciate it. So Jevi, you've asked a couple of different things in there in respect, and I've almost lost the thought now. Public-private partnership. Okay. So, and who's going to pay for it, and what is out there in the public domain? I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'm not sure which hotel you're talking about, but I'm assuming I think I know which one it is. And that hotel has already given commitment to solving and putting money towards the problem. So they're not just saying, government, you need to pay for it, because they recognize they too benefit from it just as much as the public, just as much as the Cayman Islands government, because we get revenues from each hotel room. And in respect to paying for it, again, we don't want the public to pay for it. That's why I'm saying we should establish a fund for visiting guests that come here, and we can collect that monies and use that money for restoration. And also, just like it's no different than an environmental fund that we use for turtle research or mangroves or birds or what have you, you put a fund together for beach renourishment. So it's not coming out of your general coffers, and you attach it to those who use our environment the most, which is our visiting guests. So I've just offered a way to fund it, and I've also offered that those who are benefiting the most, which would obviously be the private hotels and condos and so forth, have committed particularly to this one issue on 7 Mile Beach, have already offered. Matter of fact, there is even some residents in that area, good people, have offered up millions of dollars in finding the solution. The biggest problem that we have right now is the time and how long it will take to solve it. And I must admit that in the earlier part, because the beach renourishment issue, or the loss of the beach, was there from about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And it just got worse. And it's because we couldn't make a decision. As you recall, the government had $20 million in the budget for it. And then many people said, well, why is the government paying for it? And we couldn't find a solution. Then, unfortunately, we have, at the fall of that administration, a different administration, a little bit of beach came back, and then the bad weather came again. It became more pronounced. Docks started falling in the water. Then the beach issue came up even more severe. So we had a study that did about, I'd say, about 50 or 60% of what is there now. And that study is no longer relevant because it's expanded another 40% since then. So the engineering studies have to be amended. Hence the reason why the Department of Environment has now selected the right persons to do that updated engineering study and the updated environmental impacts on it. So the government, whoever that may be coming forward, and I'm hoping that it's a People's Progressive Government, that we can deliver on that as soon as they finish the report, to get the beach back to where it once was, to help our tourism product, and to allow our good people of the Cayman Islands to enjoy the 7 Mile Beach that they love.
Thank you.
All right.
Final question, and I've been just looking at my phone with some of the comments coming through, and they're saying, that we're asking you some pretty tough questions, and it's great, I think, for persons to have an opportunity to see whether or not you're competent and whether or not you're deserving of a vote. So I know we've been a little tough, and you've been really polite, you've been very patient and walking us through. I have one other question. There were two, but I'm going to ask you one later on, because I am a friend of UCCI's, and I do, that I'm a friend of UCCI. And one of the concerns that I have coming out of the comment that you raised about looking at our young people and also giving them an opportunity to reboot their life. I in a previous life and recently, I chaired the Labor Appeals Tribunal, and I've always had a very good relationship with Mr. Wes Howell.
Yes.
And whenever I call him up 2 or
He's
3
an
o'clock
amazing
in the
person.
he always responds.
Yeah.
I sent him a note the other day about this same issue that I'm grappling with, where I want to look at our students over the last decade, right? Because it's when you're growing up, as you rightly say, you don't know necessarily what you want to do. And as you also mentioned, when you leave school and there's no hope for employment, you get into a sort of a semi-depression state where you feel no one believes in you and you can't move forward. So I was asking Wes whether or not we have any data over the last 10 to 15 years which actually tracks Caymanians over that period of time who may have left school, who don't have a job, and what are they doing now, and what can we do to matriculate, to introduce matriculation policies at UCCI that would actually meet the needs of this particular group of people over that 10 to 15 years. So he said, well, Ms. Teresa, that's a very interesting thought. And I asked him a few other questions to do with that as well. But I know I'm an example of what, when you have an opportunity to rethink and reflect, as you have. When I left the high school, because I grew up partially in Jamaica and I grew up partially here, and although I maintained an A average right throughout high school, the shock of my mother's life when I didn't pass my O-levels, and she sold her business in Jamaica, came to Cayman, and she said she don't know what's going on in my head, but she got to make that fly right.
Yeah.
So it took the Miss Cayman experience to get me and push me into shape. I repeated 8 O-levels, and I did 4 A-levels in 9 months. First Caymanian to get grade A with economics, working full-time with the grace of the Honorable Mr. Thomas Jefferson. He saw something and he made it possible for me to work full-time and so on. And of course, the rest is history. So there are many other persons who I know who are similar to myself in that, you drift and you go with the crowd, and some of the times you need a major intervention to get you to see, well, I need to pull myself up if I want to move forward and so on. So I'm sure that there are a lot of Caymanians that fall into that bracket, and what I want to do is to find a way to accommodate these folks that fall into that area and see what UCCI can do to actually develop them. So I'm throwing that there for you and to have a think. And I'm happy if people steal the idea and run with it, because
I will steal it. I have no problem borrowing it from you. If I can just quickly respond. First off, I want to say much great honor should be given to the family of Mr. Thomas Jefferson. I think about elected persons and the sacrifices they made, and that family deserves the comfort of knowing yet we sit here in the studio with an amazing attorney at law, and you still hear the legacy of his stories and the benefits he's had on people's lives. So those family members of Mr. Thomas Jefferson, here's another living soul that your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather has affected. So thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Hopefully you can hear. But to say that data tracking of Caymanian success in studies and qualifications is something that we don't have, and we should have had it a long time ago. Not only for UCCI, but UCCI is our own, but I think we need to do that internationally, and that's another part that is a part of our manifesto, is tracking students from overseas to ensure that we start to place them in roles in our society, in our communities, before they get home. So they can come have the comfort, like what it was back in the day. You remember when government would give you a scholarship, like, yeah, I got a job going back home, until the civil service stopped doing that because you can only train so many Caymanians more than what the service needs. So we need to transition that old system back now into the whole system, not only civil service, but with the private sector as well. So we have to have all the stakeholders at the table: Chamber of Commerce, Tourism Association, civil service, and the elected arm and education department about tracking our students. And not only that, but when we offer scholarships, have them heavily focused on areas where there's gaps in Caymanians. Like, for example, recently, while I was minister, I implemented the first pilot scholarship ever in Cayman's history, because I was also the minister in charge of Cayman Airways, and I don't want ever anybody else flying our national flag carrier than a Caymanian. But what I've recognized is, because of our success, now we have so many Caymanians being pilots that I don't think we're going to run out of pilots for a while. So you adjust and you move. Say, okay, boy, we got 40 Caymanians studying to be pilots, paid for. They can take over. Then you move over to something else. Do we need more teachers? I think there should be a heavy focus on teachers. Say, listen, without a doubt, you're gonna get a scholarship for a teacher. But why, when you have things that we have so many Caymanians in, we want to make sure we strategically start to analyze where we want to go in the future, where we are now, and use our education and the money funding that we can place Caymanians at the right places and work with the organization to strategically project them up to the top. I know that you grew up in a time where our people were handpicked to say, that person is going to be the next CEO in 12 years. We got to start thinking like that, because we have a population where there's less of us and more of them. And I don't mind having more people here than Caymanians. What I have a problem is when the Caymanians are down at the bottom. You can have a gazillion foreigners here, as long as it doesn't affect the quality of life and our environment. I don't mind. I'm a Caymanian. I love people. We were welcoming. But what we're having a problem with today is that we're finding more Caymanians at the bottom of the pyramid. I want our Caymanians to be at the top of the pyramid, where they are the succeeders and successors of the success that our forefathers built for us. That's where the problem lies. It's not that we're anti anybody, but we're getting to a point now where we're going, hold on, I feel like it's all of your guys' fault because you just came, you got a house, you got a car, you got a nice job. It got to be you, when it's the system itself. And that's why I'm so happy to be a part of a group that has a plan and has the experience and the proven track record to deliver that plan that brings us back to the top of the pyramid.
On that note, Mr. Brian, we are drawing near to the top of the
Sorry,
hour.
I do
and
talk
I
a
don't
lot.
want to forego your opportunity to give some closing remarks, so I'll give you that opportunity to do it now.
And when you do so, please talk about what is the vision that you say your PPM folks have, which is reflective of a 5-year, 10-year plan for these islands, because it's all moot if we talk about doing this and this and this and looking at gaps if you don't have an overall vision. And I'd also add that I don't know how many people have that much faith in your PPM folks, so I'm hoping that you're going to do something miraculous.
I think you're going to be quite surprised
Okay.
in that respect. But I thank you both for your perspectives. I thank you for the questions, and I thank you for your patience with my answers. Just to quickly wrap up and say that yes, the progressives do have a plan for not only the short term, with the challenges that they're facing from cost of living, immigration, traffic, environment, tourism, financial services, plan, Cayman, a development plan, cost of housing, cost of health care, pension, concerns with the banks and their fees, from crime to education. We have surveyed the people of this country strategically to ask them what their concerns are, went back into the engine room, study room, and figure out what strategic approaches that can happen that are not just short-term fix, but actually long-term fixes. Because the truth is, we don't want an administration for 4 years. We want an administration for the next 40 years. Because when you're planning for the future, you can't plan in 4-year increments. And I encourage the public to vote for the progressives, vote for a group of people who are going to be committed, and to answer the question that you said, Ms. Teresa. Maybe there's a little bit of questions about past history of the progressives.
Past performance, that would be, yeah.
Well, I would challenge the performance question because in comparison to many others that are running, I think PPM actually has probably one of the better records because the other ones don't have any record to go on. So that's like saying to a doctor, somebody who is a doctor for the first time, would you want to be the patient of the first operation of a doctor who just got the qualifications? Every time you would think, you say, I want somebody with some experience doing this. And it's quite similar. And these times are very severe. But to do my closing, I want to say thank you so much to Cayman, Radio Cayman, Winner's Circle, and all the sponsors for allowing me to be on here. And to the good people of the Cayman Islands, and particularly Georgetown Central. I believe I'm the right person to be your next representative for the next 4 years, because I think I have the qualities necessary to be a representative. 1, to love your people. 2, to have the empathy and understanding of the issues that they go through and have the drive and the commitment to address those concerns. I am qualified as a journalist. I have a business degree, but I don't think what qualifications you have specifically is the end-all be-all. You can have qualifications in different things. At least you have the basic information and education to deliver, read, and write, and comprehend. But more importantly, love for the people. I think the last 8 years, being experienced in opposition, know what it's like to hold people accountable, know what it's like to be in government and being held accountable. And those 8 years have given me a lot of experience in understanding, not only from a social level, but economics, from an economic perspective, and from an international perspective. I was really, really grateful to be the chairman of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, where I represented the Cayman Islands all over the Caribbean and all over the world. I think collectively, all of those things have put me in the right place to give you even better representation over the next 4 years. That, coupled with strong colleagues beside me, I think the future for Cayman is a lot brighter than it is today. So I ask you to vote for me, number 1, for Georgetown Central and all of my PPM colleagues in the party. God bless you and have a good night.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bryan, for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We would like our listeners to join us again on Monday for our next debate, which will feature North Side and East End. Thank you to our debate sponsors, Subway, Reflections, Enterprise Cayman, Yum, UCCI, and Winner's Circle. Thank you as well to our listeners on the airwaves and streaming on the internet. And thank you to the candidates for their participation. My name is Jevi. The candidate.
The other two didn't show up.
Thank you to Ms. Teresa Pikiran for joining me for debating, and I look forward to doing it another time. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Feeding a crowd? Subway Catering makes it easy. Choose from freshly made sub and wrap platters in 2 sizes, or go for individual boxed meals, complete with a 6-inch sub, cookie, and chips. Perfect for groups of 15 or more. And don't forget dessert. Our freshly baked cookie platters come in 2 sizes, so there's always enough to go around. Visit www.subway.ky to view our catering menu. You can call or email us to place your order. Then choose to pick up in-store or get hassle-free delivery. However you cater, we've got the fresh flavors everyone loves. Subway. Eat fresh. Cater with ease.
It's March Madness at Reflections. Shop the red tag sale until the end of March at Reflections. Save on kids, men's, and women's selected style shoes and sneakers. Brands like Nike, Puma, Reebok, and Dockers 50% off. Adidas 60% off. Ladies jeans in select styles at 50% off. And ladies tops from $9.99. Men step out in your Levi's $5.50. Now 25% off. All accessories and handbags tags 50% off. Shop the March Madness red tag sale at Reflections all month long and be entered to win 2 Cayman Airways tickets. That's mad!
At Enterprise Cayman, we're connecting ambitious minds with real-world opportunities. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, tech enthusiast, or looking to expand your network, we've got the tools, training, and community to help you thrive. From career-boosting internships to hands-on startup support, this is where innovation begins. Don't miss out on the upcoming hackathon happening May 10th. Explore this and more today at enterprisecayman.ky. Enterprise Cayman. Innovate, connect, grow.
Hey, Cayman parents, we get it. You're underslept, over-trafficked. You can barely find your sanity in the morning because you're still trying to find your kids' shoes and lunch boxes. Let Yum take some of the stress away. Every day, over 3,000 students enjoy delicious, nutritious meals from Yum. Over 5 million lunches served and counting. Private school parents? Browse the Yum Cayman app and order up to a month in advance or last minute by 12 a.m. the night before. Government school students? Just drop by the Yum canteen. No pre-orders needed. Yum can't help you find your sanity, but we can sure make your mornings just a bit easier. Check out daily menus at myschoolpos.com or visit yumcayman.ky to learn more. Come on, let me in. I can't cope with Karen in the office no more, man. Another day of her could drive me mad. I got so much laundry to do home. Oh, another message? Man, is traffic not moving today or what? Come on, let me in now.
Life is all about the choices we make to deal with the office Karens or sit in this long traffic, or a choice to pursue your dreams to improve your future. UCCI. It's not the classes, the grades, or a piece of paper. It's your ticket for the adventure of your choice. The choice to live your dream. Stop waiting on the path. Visit www.ucci.edu.ky. Choose your dream and blaze your trail today.
The preceding was a paid political broadcast.
Radio Cayman, the voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Feeding a crowd? Subway Catering makes it easy. Choose from freshly made sub and wrap platters in 2 sizes, or go for individual boxed meals, complete with a 6-inch sub, cookie, and chips. Perfect for groups of 15 or more. And don't forget dessert. Our freshly baked cookie platters come in 2 sizes, so there's always enough to go around. Visit www.subway.ky to view our catering menu. You can call or email us to place your order. Then choose to pick up in-store or get hassle-free delivery. However you cater, we've got the fresh flavors everyone loves. Subway. Eat fresh. Cater with ease.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.